Happy holidays, happy new year. We have a special Something in the Air podcast for you. We are counting down the top 10 weather events of 2020, and in a year full of news, it was also full of weather news. And joined with me, as we do usually at the beginning of the month, but now we have him here at the end of the month, New Jersey State Climatologist, Dr. Dave Robinson. Dr. Robinson, thank you for being here on this Monday after Christmas. It's I know it's still busy for you, but it's quiet time, but it's a good time to reflect on the year that was.
Absolutely, and happy holidays to you and everyone else.
Yeah. So, when we get into this top 10 list, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we're going to talk about our styles, because we have different styles, and they're both good styles. It's just different styles. Then we're going to run through 10 through 6 just real quick. And then when we get 5 through 1, we'll go in depth. And, we have some similarities. We went through our 5 through 1s already, so we kind of know what each other say. We're not going to completely blindside each other, but I think we're mostly on the same page. And I bet you some of you guys listening here pretty much know what the deal was this year in New Jersey. But let's just first start talking about, let me ask you this. How long have you been doing top 10 lists for?
I just looked at it. It's 12 years that I've done a formal one and posted it. But, it's been a lot more decades than I've done one up here, from growing up in New Jersey and living most of my life in the Great Garden State.
The Great Garden State of New Jersey. Sure. Would you say, comparing this year to other years, do you think it was more weathery than other years?
No, actually, I don't. And I wondered if I was going to come up with a legitimate top 10, because there were a lot of Littleton kind of events, but not the big blockbusters that we've had in the past. Yeah. Well, there were a couple that get up there at the top. Cool. I didn't find this. Ultimately, I didn't find this year more challenging than others. But I didn't feel it was more overwhelming than others.
Maybe I'm just too nice of a guy, because I had 18 I had to choose from when I did this list.
As you know, with my list, I do a lot of subheadings.
Yes,
you've got to report it in a short period of time. I can write on as much as I want. Yes. I have bullets and sub-bullets and sub-bullets.
Yeah, I'm thinking of my editors now, and we're going to do a piece for actually in the paper with this, and they, as short as possible. Word conservation, as my editors have told me. But this is why we're doing the video, because we could just keep going on and on and on. So, all right. So you kind of talked about your style. When you do this top 10 list, just dive a little more in depth. So you're doing, you said subheaders. So you're kind of you might combine multiple events to prove one point.
No, absolutely. And otherwise, I'd have the 18 that you had for sure. And then it's a matter of ranking them. I'll say right now, I've been working on this the last couple of days, and I reserve the right to change my rankings before it's out. And I'm going to pass it along. We've talked about it. I'm going to pass it along to a few other colleagues in the office and some others. And they may talk me into shifting things a little bit, but I'm going to be a little hard to budge on that.
Maybe can I convince you?
Maybe probably not.
Probably not. I'm not there. I got to do a couple more. Maybe when I start doing my 12 top 10 list, then maybe I can start.
No. It's fun because we all like to talk about the weather, and it lets you reflect on just what we faced this year, a particularly challenging year in so many other more important ways than making a list. But there were some important weather events that shouldn't be ignored either.
Absolutely.
And let me add weather and climate. Mm-hmm. And that's where we may differ just a little bit. I'd say there's two ways we differ. One, I try to look and mix some weather and climate, and that may even influence my rankings. So something of the longer term nature with a historic significance to it, as opposed to a more acute, perhaps damaging event. And number two, I'm looking at the entire state. And you justifiably are focusing on your readership and listener area.
Just in southeastern New Jersey. So it kind of proves a point, and you'll see our number ones are different, but they're different for, we'll get there. When we get there, we'll explain the why. But part of the reason why my number one is different than your number one is because of something we didn't have that you at least had like a smidge of during the year. Right. In the central and northern part of the states.
That's another thing too. As representing the state, it's not population weighted. I'm a North Jersey guy.
All right. I was just making sure.
But no. Like years back, the derecho back there in 2012, the end of June, ranked, I think, number 2 for the year after Sandy. I mean, I really ranked. That was an incredibly impactful event. So we have stations all over the state. Our best weather stations in our network are in the southern half of the state. So equal weight, all up and down the state, coast, inland, northwest hills. Yeah.
Right. Best weather's in South Jersey is what you said.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, okay. Just the best weather stations.
Hey, I got to cross-country ski 6 times this month. You didn't get the cross-country ski 6 days this month.
Maybe jet skiing out on the water over here. It was so warm with that storm. All right, so just real quick. So as you said, I'm going to say not all of them, but some of mine, yes, are more specific events. Though I will say some of them are tied into a bigger picture only because, and I'll just let the cat out of the bag. One of them is about how hot it was this year. It's somewhere in that top 5. But I had to group all these in. We got to group in what happened in November, had to group what happened in July, had to group what happened at other times, because otherwise I'd have a top 20 list at that point. But here's what we'll do. Let's roll through real quick your 10 through 6. So you go first. I'll go with mine, and then we'll discuss for maybe like 2 or 3 minutes. So floor is yours.
Okay. Number 10, I have smoky skies. That had related to, people may remember, in mid-September, we had very hazy skies, even though there wasn't a cloud in the sky. And that was smoke from the forest fires out west. But we also had local fires. We had forest fires in South and North Jersey in February, April, and May. On a couple occasions, we had local smoke conditions. Number 10. Number 9, growing season extremes. We had a growing season between the last spring freeze and the first fall freeze. The growing season at the Atlantic City Marina station of ours was 262 days, from March 2nd to November 18th. Meanwhile, up in Northwest Jersey in a Cold Valley location of Walpack, the growing season was only 109 days. And it went from June 2nd to September 18th. So 2 months later, freeze in the fall down at the marina. And in the spring, it was 3 months difference. So just incredible difference. Again, number 8, was the December 16th, 17th storm. And you have to be careful. You don't want the recency effect, the one you remember most recently. But that was the most widespread, diverse, impactful nor'easter of the year. We had up to almost 15 inches of snow up in the highlands. 6 counties had 10 or more inches of snow. There was over 3 inches of rain down in Atlantic County.
I didn't know if you were going to get to that.
Moderate coastal flooding as well. So it had it all across the state. So that's number 8. Number 7, I call wind and more wind. Seems like this is a perennial one in my top 10. But we had 107 days this year where one of our weather stations in the state gusted to 40 miles an hour or greater. And 7 days with over a 5-month period, 5 different months, but 7 days within those 5 months with gusts of 70 miles an hour or greater. It's just real windy on a number of occasions this year. Number 6, I call severe weather potpourri. This is where I'm cheating here, because I've got there were 4 tornadoes across the state.
Yep.
There was the derecho on June 3rd across the northern half of southern New Jersey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll go with that. Burlington, Ocean, part of Atlantic.
Yeah. There were 12 days, 12 events over the course of the year that 4 or more inches of rain was measured somewhere in the state. And then finally, there were 3 days where at least one, or in some cases, multiple locations had hail from 1 to 1 3/4 inches in diameter, which is pretty darn impressive.
Yeah.
So I've probably gone on too long, but there's my 6 through 10.
No, you're good. You're good. I have Well, I guess I have three of those five in my top 10. So I'll start off with number 10, 2020, and you might be able to update me on this. Likely ends up the fifth wettest on record, at least at Atlantic City International Airport. So I know it might be different statewide, but we had on as of December 17th, 56.42 inches of precip fell at the airport. That was fifth highest. Records go back to 1944. Probably not getting to that fourth spot because that was 61.55 inches, and I don't think we're getting 6 inches of rain the second half of the month, even though we did get a good amount of rain with that December 16th, 17th nor'easter. All right, number 9 was it was severe weather, but it was a specific event, specifically the one that happened in April. We actually had a gravity wave, something called a gravity wave, come through the shore. And brought a lot of damage. I believe it was April 13th in Cape May. Congress Hall saw parts of its roof torn off, water damage to the top floor, 72-mile-an-hour winds there. A Sunoco gas station got pancaked under heavy gusts in Egg Harbor Township with winds up to 73. We had a quote, from workers in Cape May that they never saw wind like this, even compared to Sandy. That was just a quote from them. And the boardwalk in Wildwood actually got part of the boardwalk got destroyed that day. That was from a gravity wave event when air is forced to rise in stable air, and the stable air prevents it from rising into the atmosphere, so it comes back down, back to you. So that was 9. Number 8
what
was
April? Yeah. What April day was that?
April 13th.
April 13th, because I have April 21st. Seagirt had a 76-mile-an-hour wind gust.
Well, there was a lot of severe weather in April.
Okay.
So going back to your windy point, because there was even one, I think I have my honorable mention somewhere here. I should have pulled it out, but I believe it was like April 1st. There was an event, and then there was one. There might've been 2 in 1 week, and I think that was the week that we were talking about. But that one actually brought some significant damage. Even the Governor Murphy, went to the boardwalk to kind of tour the damage. Number 8 is Tropical Storm Faye. Brought a lot of rain. Not much wind and not really much coastal flooding. In fact, I was pretty much near the eye of the storm as it came through, and it was mostly cloudy, and there were people jet skiing in Brigantine. So it wasn't really that big of a deal. Although, unfortunately, I should say, with the rip currents, we did actually have 2 people who did pass away in the rip current. So not really a huge deal on land, but the waters were certainly rough. 7, that wildfire smoke. Like you said, that's what I had in September. Everybody was talking about it for a couple of days from the 14th to the 17th. And then number 6, September 10th of this year, at Atlantic City International Airport, 3.97 inches of rain fell on that day, which was the highest one-day total in the month of September. AC Marina actually had more, but was not the number 1 spot because AC Marina's records go way back to the 1870s. So that's what I had. But actually, let me put that in context. I'm reading this note that I had here now. Out of all of the days in Atlantic City International Airport's history, and again, going back to 1943, that's a lot of days, it was the 99.94 percentile of heaviest rain events. So I thought that was pretty impressive. I feel like that was kind of an underreported day. And I'm not saying anything to you. I'm just saying in general. I feel like there wasn't as much buzz about it for a weather event.
It was pretty local.
It was, yes, it was. It was pretty local. It was rain pretty much along the shore, I think if I remember from that event, like Millville saw like an inch or something, so it really was pretty local. And that's the difference, obviously, we're covering southeastern New Jersey. Dr. Robinson's covering the whole state. So what do you think of my 10 through 6?
I like it. I like it. It's got to make me think about looking at precip. You're what, number 9? I guess that was no
6. 6 was the AC airport.
Yeah, no, but the one with the annual precip.
Oh, that was 10.
That was 10.
Yeah.
I have to look at that a little closer, but for sure, the South Jersey was wetter than normal this year, while North Jersey was not, and teetered on borderline drought a few times.
Sure.
So statewide, it's not an impressive year. But in particular, I think it was last year, Stafford Township just wanted to rain there.
Yeah.
This year, it was over in Gloucester County, South Harrison, Sewell, that area, where they got whacked a few times by tropical systems and all. But the South Coast, not down to Cape May, the Cape May bubble.
Yes, the bubble.
But up a little higher. So I'm going to look at that a little more closely. But statewide, it's not an impressive year for rainfall, but locally, regionally, a bit more. So that's one I found very interesting.
Okay, cool. And at the marina, I'm just trying to see. I'm looking right now to see if it was even in the top 10 here. I really just looked at the airport for this. It was not in the top 10 at the marina, but again, it goes like back to light bulbs were barely around when they started taking these weather observations. So,
yeah, my childhood, right?
I didn't say that. Those were not my words. Not my words. They're your words. You maybe for AC Airport. How about that? I'll compromise.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. All right. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a brief break. When we come back, we're gonna do 5 through 1 top 10 weather events of 2020. You're listening to Something in the Air podcast. Hey everyone, I'm meteorologist Joe Martucci at the Press of Atlantic City. Every time I do a talk, I say, if I could take this job again, I'd take it 10 times out of 10. I'm the only meteorologist at a newspaper in New Jersey. And down here in southeastern New Jersey, you all know weather matters more. Whether it's for farming, it's for the beach, or for your business. Weather plays a huge role here, and I'm making sure I'm doing things that cater to you. Whether it's talking about if your street's gonna have coastal flooding, or whether you need the air conditioner on at night at the shore. We're the only place that's doing a mainland and shore 7-day forecast. We're the only ones that are talking about whether your street is going to have coastal flooding. And that's why I want to keep this going. And we are back for this special year-end edition of Something in the Air podcast. We are recapping the top 10 weather events of 2020. Joined with me, New Jersey State climatologist Dr. Dave Robinson. And we just did 10 through 6, which, had some events, notable events, of course. But now we're going to get into the real ones. We'll call it 5 through 1 here. And here's what we'll do. We'll read them off just real quick because we have some similarities here. And then we'll go in depth. So we'll have you go first. You're the guest. You go first. 5 through 1.
All right. Number 5 is Tropical Storm Faye and Friends. 5 other tropical systems that affected the state, with one exception. Number 4 is Seasonal Confusion. And that is, we had an episode in May with some of the coldest May weather on record. And we had one in November with some of the warmest November weather on record. Number 3 is the snow drought, but, and I'll explain the but when we get back later, but basically the snow drought for last winter season, the fall of 19 through early spring of 20. Number 2 is Tropical Storm Isaias, and number 1, this is quite likely, we don't have all the numbers in, to be New Jersey's second warmest year on record of the last 126 years we have data for.
All right. So I have 1, 2, 3 in my top 5, or out of your top 5, I have 3 of those in there. So number 5 for me was a specific event, and that was back on July 1st. We had a 1.75-inch hailstone into Petersburg Township, Upper Township. You might be saying, well, how big is that? That is, oh boy, I had it. Golf ball size. That is that big. Golf ball size. So think about golf balls falling on your front yard. Not great. That was the largest hailstone in the county since 2008, and the largest one in Cumberland, Ocean, Atlantic, and Cape May counties since 2014. So it's been a while for that. Number 4, we had June 4th. I'll just say that. We'll get into that because there was a derecho, record heat, and another round of severe weather all in the same day. That was the busiest day of my Press of Atlantic City working career, hands down. Number 3, Tropical Storm Isaias. Number 2, the heat. Now, you have the second warmest in the state. I put warmest here on record because I'm going off AC Marina, or AC International Airport. We'll go off of that. And number 1, the lack of snow, and that they continue into our nor'easter on the 16th into the 17th, unless you lived in Hamilton or Bridgeton. Otherwise, you saw nada. So we will, let's talk about Faye and Friends.
Yeah, I mean, Faye was the first landfalling tropical system in New Jersey since Irene, in 2011. Remember, Sandy was post-tropical when it made landfall at Brigantine.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. I mean, there was 6.23 inches of rain in South Harrison. Again, that Gloucester County deluge effect of the year. I had a 57-mile-an-hour gust at our station up in Seagirt, which it's not minor, but it's not overly impressive.
It could be worse.
Even the lowest pressure wasn't impressive. But it was notable. But I didn't give it its own standing because ECESIS stands above that so much. If I had Faye alone, it would have been down where you had it, down lower. But there were 5 other systems that had some impact on the state over the course of the season. Late August, Laura, but again, it did produce 4.92 inches of rain at one location. Sally was mid-September, less than an inch of rain, 35-mile-an-hour gusts, churned up the ocean some. Beta, then we kind of learned the Greek alphabet this year with all the storms. Beta came in September 27th, 28th. Again, kind of a very minor event here, but the moisture from the storm and the remnants of it did impact the area. Delta was October 11th and 12th. That dropped 4.90 inches of rain, the most at one location. And then Zeta, October 29th to 31st, which was it wasn't just purely that event. There was another storm associated with it, but again, dropped over 4 inches of rain at one spot, had 45-mile-an-hour wind gusts. So they weren't trivial, but they were much minor compared to Faye, which is minor compared to ECESIS.
Right. Yep. Gotcha. All right. Let's get to your seasonal confusion.
That's really interesting. Some may remember I almost called it the endless spring because March was mild, and then April and May were the 2 below normal months of this year. So spring kind of lasted forever. Many times it's like winter, hello, summer.
Yep.
But not this year. And that's because April and May were so cool. But I mean, it got absurd when the polar vortex broke loose and came into New Jersey from the 8th to 10th of May. And there was an inch of snow at High Point and measurable snow at other locations in North Jersey for the first time in May since May 9th. Again, it was May 9th of 1977. And the temperatures, highest temperature in the state, the May 9th was 51 degrees. It was down South Jersey way. See if I look at my notes here. I can't remember. Yeah, Sicklerville over in Camden County. But up at High Point Monument, it only got up to 36 that day. And it was 24 in the morning with 50-mile-an-hour winds. So on May 9th, you had a 3-degree wind chill at the highest spot in the state. So one of the coldest May episodes on record in New Jersey. Meanwhile, turn the clock ahead to November, and we had a week of 70-degree weather in November.
Oh, yeah.
And that was from the 5th to the 11th. Every day, some station got between 72 and 82 degrees. And the 8th was really culminated or punctuated just how mild it was. 11 of our mesonet sites around the state, we have 65 of them, but 11 got between 80 and 82 degrees. The coolest was very interesting. It was down Fortescue on Delaware Bay because the south winds were blowing over the cooler bay waters and kept them, as I recall, in the upper 60s.
Not too shabby.
So no, that even there it wasn't shabby at all. And with that, 4 days in a row, our cooperative weather station in New Brunswick, which is really the benchmark station in New Jersey, goes back to 1893. But 4 days in a row had record highs and the latest 80-degree reading on record. So I won't go into it further, but arguably one of the warmest November episodes in a century more of records.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you had people on the beach, you had people on the boardwalk, you had shorts, you had T-shirts, maybe even some bathing suits. But Yeah, just I'll go a little more in depth. Like for here, for our area, we had record high temperatures at Atlantic City International Airport on the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th. It was 77 on the 7th, 79 on the 8th, and 76 on the 9th. That was the first time we had record high 3 days in a row since October 2016. So, yeah, and it was also the longest November streak with temperatures above 70. So you have never lived through such a warm stretch of November weather here in southeastern New Jersey, unless you were right along the Delaware Bay. Sorry, Fortescue. But even like Atlantic City, right? Atlantic City, Long Beach Island, Ocean City, they're still in the 70s, or at the very least, just around 70 during this time too. So it was incredible warmth. And and going back to May, I do remember May as well. I was not in South Jersey that day, that Saturday, May day, where there was a little bit of snow up in the northern part of the state, but that's where I was, in the northern part of the state. I remember seeing some flurries on May 9th, and I was like, what is this world that we live in?
Yeah.
But I guess you could have been saying that for a lot of other reasons, too, on May 9th.
Yeah, a lot of these fit 2020 perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we'll go to number 3. That was your snow drought. That's one where we have in common. I have that as number 1.
With good reason. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a little different. Reason. Yeah, a little different for me. But go ahead. You talk about the snow, or the lack thereof, and I'll fill in afterwards with some South Jersey context.
Yeah, again, we're talking about the snow season of 1920, late 19 and into 2020. And for the state, it had the third least amount of snow on record. Again, our records go back to 1895. But in South Jersey, and that's where we get to Burlington and Ocean southward, it was the least snowy winter. The average snowfall in the southern part of the state was 0.6 inches. That's 18.7 below normal, if you want to look at the whole period of record. So really a snow drought. The state as a whole was 4.7 inches. And most of that fell in the first week of December up in central and particularly North Jersey. So really quite the snow drought along the lines of the winter of 97, 98, the winter of 72, 73. Those are the only ones that statewide that were less snowy. So yeah, but I have the ... but
why?
We still had snow on May 9th. And we had snow on October 30th. And that gap between measurable snows may have been one of the shortest gaps on record in New Jersey, but we don't have real good records from isolated high elevation locations in the north. But to go only May 9th to October 30th is pretty impressive. We've had earlier October measurable snows, but they've come in years where we maybe didn't even have an April measurable snow or an early April measurable snow. So that was, that's part of the but. And then the fact on the 16th and 17th, outside of southeastern Jersey, many locations exceeded, just in that one event a couple of weeks ago, exceeded their snowfall for all of last season. So if we look at the calendar year for snowfall, it's not going to be quite as impressive. But in our community, we look at winter as being fall. It straddles years.
Yeah. Now, I had it as 1. I have it as 1. Mm-hmm. I actually had it as 1 that I switched it to 2, and then I brought it back to 1.
I love it.
And there's 2 reasons for that. 1, when you guys, I say you guys, the non-Southeastern New Jersey folks had that snow on the 16th, 17th, I said, all right, that's it. I'm putting it at 1 because it's just that crazy. But also, and like you said, usually we count the winters. And I did. However, if you looked at 2020 from January 1 to December, we're recording this on the 28th. We're not going to see any snow through the 31st. We had the least snowiest year on record at Atlantic City International Airport, because for the winter 1920, we had the second least snowiest year at Atlantic City International Airport. So when I calculated between just calculating 2020 in and of itself, and when I calculated what happened last winter, and then what happened with our nor'easter on the 16th, 17th, I said, I'm going to put it at 1. Now, in Lower Township, where we have records that go way back, and I think you're familiar with this, goes back to the 1890s. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Not a flake of snow fell in 2020. Not even a trace fell. So that also kind of put me over the edge.
You sure it didn't fall? There were a couple nights ago, I had a video of family members in Lewis, Delaware, and it was snowing. It was just, but I looked at the radar. It might have missed Cape May.
What day was this? Because if this was after, and now you're blowing my cover a little bit, but I wrote this on the 17th. So if it happened in the past 7 days, maybe
it was Saturday evening. It was the evening of the 26th.
Well,
now,
let me look.
I looked at the radar. It might have just been, a little bit that made it into.
This is live investigative journalism happening right now. No. Well, on the 26th, it reports a 0 snowfall. That's what our buddy Wayne Root down in Lower Township.
Midnight Observer.
Yes, he is a Midnight Observer. He reports 0 for that day.
Okay.
So I'm saved. But maybe there were, I believe, yes, to your point, there were probably some flurries that might have been around, but maybe he didn't, and nothing against him. Maybe he didn't catch it at midnight. I don't know. Maybe something happened. But either way,
your poor listeners seeing this minutia that we battle with, and this is so typical, and it's great for our business, if you will.
Yes, it's great really for business.
It's one that we love as well as we take seriously.
Yeah, exactly. We love it. I know, if you're listening to this, you at least like it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but
maybe you don't want to get all in the weeds.
Yeah, but I can feel the eyes rolling.
Yes, there's a couple of eyes rolling. I can see my editors looking at me now thinking, what the heck am I doing talking about, minute flurries. But either way, and also during March, right? We had no snow during March statewide.
Right.
That was a record. Was that
before a few tenths of an inch fell in central and northeast Jersey on it's like the 9th of December or sometime before it was about the 9th. There had not been measurable snow since January 18th.
Yeah. And January 18th felt like a long time ago.
Well, that was, when the world was
more normal back then. All right. Number 2, you have Isaias. That was my number 3. So good. Floor is yours.
That was just the most impactful tropical system statewide since Sandy.
Yeah.
It's a baby Sandy. Let's face it. Only 1 million customers lost power, which equates to about 3 million people. So about a third of the state. And Sandy was about 80% of the state. But Sandy wasn't as impactful south of the AC Expressway, as we mentioned earlier in the year, the derecho had been. Not that it was inconsequential, please don't get me wrong, because I know along Delaware Bay it was quite destructive. But anyway, getting back to Isaias, the peak gust we had was 71 miles an hour, speaking of Delaware Bay, at Fortescue. But there were 2 tornadoes, that real impressive tornado in Upper Township.
Yeah. Memora section of Upper Township.
Memora that came as a water spout on shore there. And then another one further north up in Manahawkin, in Ocean County. 7.86 inches of rain fell in Salem County. Yeah, again, that's Southwest Jersey. Positive anomaly this year. So that's a lot of rain fell from that system. Pressure, Sandy was below 27, it was in below 28 inches of mercury. This was 29.38 down in Salem County. It was an impactful storm, the most wind damage, the most power outages since Sandy. So well deserving of a top ranking.
Yeah. And I had this, I was thinking about putting this at 2, and I ended up putting Well, we'll get there for what we'll have, but I put it at 3 just because I think there was some bigger climate things in the snow. I thought it was a bigger story, but it really just splitting hairs at this point. With the tornadoes, that was, I mean, in Memora, a fairly destructive tornado that kind of went from Strathmere, raced across the bay into the marsh, across the parkway, went into the Coca-Cola facility, really brought damage there. The bottling plant went into a mobile home community and brought, again, some good damage there. We have some footage on our website, pressopac.com/weather, some drone footage of the tornado damage. And then actually afterwards, a lot of trees turned brown because of all the salt air that was coming onto shore for that period of time. Interesting about the rain, we along the shore did not really get a lot of rain. I think AC Marina got like 0.25, like a quarter of an inch. And you said Salem, got over 7. So there's a real tight gradient. And I remember, kind of saying this. I said, listen, for us, and then this is a rare time you say it, this is actually a wind storm for us when you're talking about a tropical system. Usually we like to, when I do talks and, other people I know do talks, and we talk about tropical systems, say, don't focus on the wind, focus on the coastal flooding, focus on the rain. This was one where you had to focus on the wind. And I was on the AC boardwalk that afternoon, and then we had a gust like 61. And that was one time, I can't say I've had many, but that was one of the few times where I'm like, I'm really getting pushed around by this wind out here. So that was, pretty incredible. Also, the damage was so extensive that President Trump approved federal disaster assistance on December 14th for Cape May, Atlantic, and Cumberland counties, among others in the state.
Yeah, well, and the reason for the wind and lack of rain, first of all, the lack of rain and the wind explains why you had so many trees go brown.
Yeah.
I rode out Bob back in the early 90s up on Cape Cod, where it barely rained, but the winds were 80 to 100 miles an hour, and everything was brown within days after that. So very similar. But it's because the storm just grazed Warren County, we think, but it was basically just to the west of New Jersey, and the right side of tropical storms tend to be the windy side, and the left side or right by them, with Salem, for instance, it tends to be wettest.
Exactly.
And we saw that with Floyd and Irene. Now, Sandy was a strange bird because it came in perpendicular to the coast. So that's why South Jersey wasn't as windy and was 8-10 inches of rain. And Central and North Jersey had the wind. And with that, the incredible storm surge as well. Yeah. So, I mean, it's when those storms go up the Delaware Valley, that's when you got to look along the coast for some pretty strong southerly winds. And
we've had that with some other non-tropical storms this year, namely the one that the nor'easter kind of was. We had strong southerly winds, especially here. We had another system. I think it was in November. That was pretty similar, cut right up like the Appalachian Mountains. Yep. And New Year's Eve could be something similar with some southerly winds. Not the same setup, but anyway.
Well, all right. Christmas Eve too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course, the one we just had, Christmas Eve. Yes, that was strong southerly winds as well for us, and probably the strongest out of all the ones I mentioned. All right, let's get to your number 1, my number 2, and that was
the warmth.
Yeah.
The numbers aren't fully in, but I can tell you the first 11 months of this year ranks second. And in looking at the data then, it was really hard to December would have had been exceptionally warm to surpass 2012 as the warmest year on record, but it would have been real cold to fall to 3rd or 4th place. So this is quite likely to be New Jersey's second warmest year on record, with 2012 being the warmest. We have records going back 126 years, 1895 to 2020 is 126. It's not 125 years. And 11 of the 15 warmest years during that period have all occurred this century.
Wow. Not surprising, but wow. Actually, at the airport, Atlantic State International Airport, 8 of the 10 warmest years on record have all occurred since 2010. to add
Yeah.
some more context for that. So
Yeah,
it's not something that's going to change. And I actually looked at this because I was like, when was the last time we had a year ranked in the top 10 for coldest years? At the airport, it was 1992, which came in 10th place.
Here's a real piece of trivia. We have on our website, you can find it. It lists, it has a graph that shows where you had one of the 5 coldest or one of the 5 warmest for each month. So there's 10 years picked out for each month of the year. We have not had a month in New Jersey rank in the top 5 for cold. Now this is a month in the top 5 for cold since December of 1989. That's the last time we had, again, a month rank in the top 5 for cold. During that last 30 years, we've had 45 months rank in the top 5 for warmth.
That's a good trivia stat. 45 months.
Just astounding. In climate, a shutout, 45 to nothing is just astounding. Well, what it tells you is there's been a fundamental change in the regional climate system.
Yeah, right. And most of that, it's due to human-induced climate change. That is really the only thing that can explain why things are changing as fast. And I like to explain to people all the time. Have we been hotter than we've been before on planet Earth? Absolutely. Have we been colder? Yes, we have more recently, but it's the rate of change that is really the alarming part of all this. Usually these kind of changes happens over thousands of years, and we're compressing this into a very short period of time.
Yeah. And again, we're seeing it year after year, season after season. And it's not, as you said, the hottest temperature in the state this year was only 99 degrees. We didn't have any station hit the century mark, yet July was the warmest of any month on record.
Yep.
And we had, let me look at this, winter, last December through February was the 7th warmest. Summer was the 2nd warmest. Fall was the 6th warmest. 10 months of the year averaged above normal. Just April and May were below. Yeah. And 6 of those 10 months ranked in the top 10 for warmth. I mean, the beat just goes on. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that 2021 is going to have 6 of the 10 warmest. Things go up and down. And we've got what's called a La Nina event now globally. And that tends to result in somewhat cooler global, even into regional temperatures, somewhat cooler. There's a bit of a lag due to ocean dynamics. So globally, even 2021 shouldn't be as warm as 2020. And 2020 is neck and neck with 2018 now as the warmest year globally on record. But next year, with the lag effect of a La Nina, it's probably not going to be as warm. But in a year that included the onset of a La Nina event, to have it be tied essentially for the warmest on record is amazing.
Yeah.
So the warm is getting warmer and the cool is getting warmer is the way you can look at it.
Yep. Great way of putting it.
We can still have some cool. We've just kind of shifted things. So it's probability of getting real warm is higher, but there's still some probability of being cold. It's just kind of that shift.
Sure. And I'm thinking back to pretty much this time 3 years ago at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, we had many days well below freezing. I mean, really brutal cold. We had record lows that were set. That can happen, but that doesn't happen as frequently, and it will not happen as frequently. But you can still get
we saw it in May. We saw it just this past May. Mm-hmm. You get a certain weather pattern. That May event was, during that period of time, the eastern United States was the coldest part on the globe relative to normal. There was no spot that was experiencing abnormal cold anywhere on Earth than right here in the Northeast for those couple of days.
We're a special place here in the Northeast in multiple ways.
Yeah, in multiple ways.
More ways than one. All right. So how about we just quickly recap what our top 5 was. I'll start. It was largest hailstone in 12 years falls in Cape May County. That was a golf ball sized hailstone. Number 4 was June 4th. We had a derecho, record heat, and then more severe weather. Number 3, Isaias. Number 2, the record heat we had here for the year. Second warmest in the state. First warmest at Atlantic State International Airport. And then number 1 for me was the least snowiest year and winter on record.
For me, it was Faye and other minor tropical events were number 5. Number 4 was that seasonal confusion, that cold spell in May, the warm spell in November. Number 3 was the snow drought, with a few exceptions here and there. Number 2 is Isaias. And number 1 was the warmth, the annual and seasonal and monthly warmth.
Right. All right. So I think, we were pretty close. I think on many of these, we're pretty close. We had no glaring differences here. I think we pretty much hit them all on some way, shape, or form, except with some of the rain stuff. But either way, I think you did a good job. I think everybody who's going to see this on. Oh, wait, is that a compliment coming my way?
I said, so did you.
Oh, thank you. But we will, as we go into next year, we'll have, of course, a new top 10. Any guesses on what you think maybe number 1 will be for next year? You want to fathom a guess and we'll revisit this at the end of next year?
No. You don't. I can tell you it's going to be a blizzard. It's going to be a heat wave. It's going to be a tropical storm, or a real surprise. You never know in this business. There's so many variables at play. We'll have to wait and see. I should add that if I can give a little plug, if you want to read more about these, besides reading your columns,
please,
and postings, I write each month a couple thousand words about the month. And at the end of each season, do a little bit of recap. And we'll be posting these top 10 on the State Climate website. So you can go, and if you really want to dive into any one of these events, our episodes we've been talking about, njclimate.org.
Yeah. And I believe you could sign up to get an email sent to you when it's out.
Absolutely. We have a mail list, and we'll let you know when these come out.
Perfect. Yeah, I want to definitely give you the plug for that, because you will have that out on your website probably by the time most of you are listening to this. All right. Well,
fun.
That was fun. I'm glad we got to do this. It's a good recap, good to compare, have a little bit of laughs as well. Hope you guys found this fun as well. On my website, pressofac.com/weather, you can actually vote. What is your favorite, or I should say, what is your most memorable top 10 weather events? So you can vote online for that. Be interested to see what you had to say. And that's it. We got New Year's coming up. Any New Year's plans?
Actually might see my sister and
okay.
brother-in-law. Big
Very
family
small.
outing, 4 people.
Sure.
Otherwise, just count our blessings that this year didn't hit my family too hard. And I was blessed with 2 new granddaughters this year.
Congratulations.
And, a little 2-year-old as of yesterday. So it wasn't all bad for hopefully anyone, but certainly I'm blessed that this year had some real positive points too.
Absolutely. Great way to end it here. So we're going to wrap it up. This was our top 10 weather events of 2020, coming to you from the Press of Atlantic City in the office of the New Jersey State Climatologist. We will be back in your podcast feed or YouTube feed, however you're listening to this, very shortly. We will be back with you on January 6th. That is going to be recapping just the month of December here. We will talk about how, if you're watching this video, there is no snow behind me. He said he saw some snow piles outside his window right now. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Christmas Eve into Christmas Day storm. Might even have to talk about a New Year's Eve into New Year's Day storm. We'll see exactly how the timing shakes out, and we'll recap that all with you here. You can find us, pressofac.com, /weather for the latest in South Jersey weather videos. We have forecasts, articles, and more. And you can go to njclimate.org or njweather.org for your climate needs here in the state of New Jersey. So, any last words before we wrap up, Doctor?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good luck, everybody, in 2021. There.